So we are in a ball game, born of white people seeing themselves as suffering with the pandemic, with job loss, men seeing themselves shoved aside as being less important, all these social problems being not met or not solved, and here we are, a group of people feeling outcast, and then turning around and blaming this group or that group. And when you have a leader say, yeah, you're right, blame this group or that group, and do nothing for the people really. I mean, I heard Trump in his early speeches saying he was going to do infrastructure. He did nothing on infrastructure. The only big thing he did was made a big tax cut for the wealthy, which did nothing for infrastructure. Zip. The wall in separating Mexico was about separating people. It wasn't about really infrastructure, putting a lot of jobs together for people. There was no big employment there going on, none. So he didn't really keep his word. Hitler kept his word. He built the Autobahn, their interstate highway system, huge and magnificent. It was a platform for the military. It never was in any country before. He did it first. We followed his idea. We started, FDR started one in Oklahoma, and it got stopped because of the war, and it picked up again after the war. But Hitler came up with those ideas. He did a lot more for the people, more directly, and they had national health care. And their healthcare system at the time of World War II was 200 years old. They had that long. So he kept things for the people to the extent that his Volkswagen means the people's car. So Hitler really was, frankly, in terms of being a leader to do things for the people, a better leader, as bad as he did in the end, better leader for the people generally, by far, than Trump. And Trump bragged about wealthy people should keep their money, and fuck the little guy, pardon my language, but that's what it is. If you're not going to do for the low end directly and get them up and moving and working, you're doing nothing. You are what you do, not what you talk about. You are what you actually do. So now we're at a crossroads. He does this crystal knock thing. He busts up the palace, the point of government, the leadership of the government, and he has nothing behind him except the people who are crazed that he's going to make this change for them, but he's done nothing. And now they're facing imprisonment because of following him over his speech. And it's a lost cause. The guy that comes along and puts everybody to work at all levels, if the government has to do it, the corporations will not. They'll do some of it, but they'll only do it after the government leads the way and does the planning. The interstate highway system was planned for by the government. The electric grid was planned for by the government. All the government planning was for generally building the country up to hold it together so it could function as a bulwark of industry and commerce for the world to compete with everybody. And if you don't keep that in good shape and good repair, which is we've not done, we've let it fall apart, which everybody hoped he would do that. He defied hopes, but they still didn't want to blame him for that, this group of people. They said, well, you blocked him from doing what he wanted to do. He got denied that. It's your fault that he didn't do what he said he would do. It's everybody's fault but Donald Trump. Whether that's entirely the problem, but Trump really made the voting issue quite a clear problem. So this thing is going to get, for the Republican Party, worse before it gets better. You saw that right there. The House Republicans voted to impeach President Trump. You lost it, but there were, I think, 10 Republicans voted with the Democrats. Nonetheless, the argument about who won or didn't win is caused primarily, as I said in the previous time, because of the Electoral College. That's just one of a series of many problems we have. We've got to change this country. We got to change this. You got to get rid of the electoral college, got to reallocate the representation of senators, and we got to make the government change quicker. You can't elect somebody on November 3rd and wait till January 20th to install them. That's nuts. This is ridiculous. Either have your election on January 1st and put them in place on January 20th, or elect them in November 3rd and put them in office 10 days later. Something like that. We have a ridiculously stupid design that we've honored because somebody did it in 1870. Or 1890, excuse me. This is ridiculous. Honoring the founders. They were living in a time when it took you 10 hours to go from Washington to Virginia. There was no rail system. There was no easy traffic. There was no easy quick time. They didn't have, in those days, there was no, later on, 100 years later or so in 1860, there was the telegraph, there was the rail, and traffic and movement moved a lot quicker. But the slowness of everything was designed around how slow it took to do things. People running on horseback with messages going back and forth to move something more quickly. No telegraph, no television, none of that at that time. And we're supposed to honor that mode of whatever we do. We're talking today about things like cyber this and cyber that and Bitcoin and immediate transfer of this, and we're still operating for our electoral system, out of the electoral college created in 1790. I mean, this is nuts. But anyway, the causes are like a similar thing. So we've got to understand one another. The best way to understand is seriously call for that kind of change. So the breaking of the Capitol building in any respect was a breaking of the idea that there's something regarded as sacred. And some people believe that it was sacred. And when you break that, and you break the backs of the minorities, and you allow one group, a supreme majority, superior white group, then you've got a problem. You give them the kind of power or feeling they can roam around and tear things up. My daughter's friend